The sun dipped low behind the jagged mountains of the human colony on Virelia, casting long shadows across the quiet settlement. The colony had been built only a few decades ago, but already it felt alive with the hum of engines, the chatter of explorers returning from the wild forests, and the faint rustle of alien wildlife in the distance. Among the settlers was a boy named Jaren, a curious and fearless youth, always seeking the unknown beyond the colony walls. Jaren had always been fascinated by the strange forests that stretched beyond the human settlements. Towering trees with silver leaves shimmered in the fading sunlight, and luminous plants seemed to pulse gently, as though breathing in rhythm with the wind. Many colonists avoided the forest, wary of the unknown dangers, but not Jaren. He believed that curiosity was a kind of courage, and courage had always guided his steps. One afternoon, while exploring a narrow path lit by the soft glow of the trees, Jaren heard a soft sound, a kind of melodic hum unlike anything he had ever heard. Following it cautiously, he stumbled upon a small clearing, and there, among flowers that glowed like tiny stars, he saw her. She was unlike any being he had ever seen. Her skin had a delicate, pearlescent sheen, and her eyes shimmered with a golden hue that seemed to reflect not only the light, but her own emotions. She had long, silvery hair that cascaded like liquid moonlight down her back, and when she looked at him, her gaze was filled with curiosity, not fear. The girl, Lyra, spoke in a language Jaren did not understand at first, but there was something familiar in the tone, warmth, friendliness, and a hint of laughter. Jaren instinctively felt that they could communicate even without words. "Hello," he said carefully, using the common human tongue. Lyra tilted her head, examining him. Then with a soft sound she repeated, "Hello?" Her voice was musical, almost like a chime. Jaren smiled, relieved. "I'm Jaren, who are you?" Her lips curved into a small, shy smile. "Lyra." From that moment, an unusual friendship began. Every day, Jaren would explore the forest and find Lyra waiting. They discovered ways to communicate through gestures, drawings, and shared games. He taught her how to make simple maps of the forest, and she showed him hidden streams, glowing flowers, and small creatures he had never noticed. Despite the differences in their species, a bond grew between them, quiet and strong, built on trust and curiosity. One evening, as the twin moons of Virelia rose and bathed the forest in soft silver light, Jaren sat beside Lyra near a small waterfall. The water sparkled, reflecting the moons and the glowing plants around them. "I have to leave soon," Jaren said quietly, tracing his finger along the smooth stones. "My parents are taking me on a long expedition. I don't know when I'll be back." Lyra's golden eyes widened slightly. She seemed to understand the gravity of his words even without him saying more. Jaren took a small pouch from his pocket. Inside was a simple crystal, smooth and clear. "Take this," he said, handing it to her. "It's a promise that I will come back." Lyra turned it in her hand, mesmerized by the way it caught the light. "A promise?" she asked softly. "Yes," Jaren nodded. "I promise. I will come back for you. And one day, we will be together." His voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the words. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, then pressed the crystal to her chest. "I will wait," she said. Her voice was steady, though a single tear glimmered in the corner of her eye. Jaren smiled, feeling both joy and sadness. "I will return," he repeated. "No matter what happens, I will return." The next morning, the colony prepared for the expedition. Ships gleamed under the morning sun, engines humming with power. Jaren waved to his friends and family, but his heart ached for the small figure waiting in the forest. Lyra stood among the trees, holding the crystal, watching as the ship lifted off. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Lyra visited the clearing every day, hoping to catch a glimpse of Jaren's ship, imagining his return. She explored the forest, learning more about the creatures and plants, sometimes thinking about how different her world would be when he came back. Meanwhile, Jaren's journey took him across the stars. He experienced strange planets, bizarre landscapes, and met beings of incredible intelligence and wisdom. Yet through every adventure, every new world, he kept Lyra in his thoughts. He told himself that her crystal was a reminder of home, of the promise that bound him to something greater than himself. During one quiet night aboard the expedition ship, Jaren found a moment to look at the stars. They stretched endlessly, infinite and beautiful. Somewhere out there, Lyra waited. Somewhere, that small alien girl with golden eyes held the crystal close to her heart. He whispered softly to himself, "I will return. I promise." Back on Veralia, life went on. Lyra grew stronger and wiser, learning the ways of her people and the secrets of the forest. She became known among her peers for her courage and insight, always carrying the crystal as a reminder of the boy who had promised her a future. Some doubted her story, believing it was a child's dream, yet she never wavered. She believed in the promise. One day, while walking through the forest, Lyra encountered a group of travelers from other regions of her planet. They were lost, frightened by strange creatures that lurked near the edges of the forest. Without hesitation, Lyra guided them safely through the glowing paths, showing courage and intelligence far beyond her years. When they asked why she risked herself, she simply touched the crystal at her chest and smiled. "Because I believe in promises," she said. Years passed. Jaren continued his work, learning about new technologies, alien cultures, and the wonders of the galaxy. He faced dangers and challenges that tested his mind, body, and spirit. Yet in the quiet moments he thought of Lyra, of the crystal, of the promise he had made in the forest on Veralia. Every success, every discovery was fueled by the hope that one day he would return to her, and Lyra, in turn, never stopped hoping. Her heart remained tied to the boy who had shown her that courage and curiosity could cross even the greatest divides. She would wait. She would grow, learn, and be ready for the day when Jaren returned. For she knew in her heart that promises made with sincerity were never forgotten, no matter how many stars lay between them. On the final evening before the colony's expedition left Veralia, Jaren and Lyra met one last time in the clearing. The sky glowed with colors neither human nor alien had names for, as if the universe itself was witnessing their farewell. "I will return," Jaren said, kneeling to meet her gaze. "I promise." Lyra placed her hand gently over his, her golden eyes shining. "And I will wait," she replied. "No matter how long it takes." They shared a silent moment, letting the forest witness their vow. Then with a final nod, Jaren turned and walked toward the ship, ready to face the unknown. Lyra watched, holding the crystal close, her heart filled with both hope and longing. And so, the promise was made, a simple vow that would survive years, distance, and the vastness of space. A promise that would shape the lives of two beings from different worlds, bound by trust, courage, and the quiet magic of hope. The forest fell silent, save for the gentle hum of life around her, and Lyra whispered to the stars, "Come back to me, Jaren." And somewhere, far across the galaxy, Jaren looked at the stars and whispered back, "I will return." The years stretched on like the endless stars above Veralia. The colony grew, and Jaren's absence became a quiet ache in Lyra's heart. She walked the forest paths alone now, the crystal he had given her always in her hand, always glowing faintly in the twilight. To the other aliens she seemed calm, wise, and even brave. But in the quiet moments her thoughts always returned to the boy who had promised her a future. Life on Veralia continued as it always had. The forest remained a place of wonder and danger, filled with creatures that shimmered and glided among the glowing plants. Lyra learned their ways, understanding which paths were safe and which were not. She became skilled in navigating the forests, tracking animals, and reading the subtle signs of nature. Her people began to respect her courage and intelligence, and though some doubted her tale of the human boy, she never wavered in her belief that he would return. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Jaren's life was a journey of discovery. The expedition he joined as a young boy had grown into a large mission, exploring uncharted worlds, studying strange civilizations, and encountering dangers that most humans could not imagine. He learned about alien cultures, languages, and technologies, growing into a man of wisdom and courage. Each mission reminded him of the promise he had made in the forest, the promise that guided him more than any map or star chart. Jaren's mind often wandered back to Lyra. He remembered her laughter, the way her golden eyes seemed to understand him without words, and the crystal she had pressed to her heart when he left. Even in the most dangerous situations, he would hold the crystal in his mind, imagining her holding it as a symbol of their connection. Every challenge, every perilous climb through alien terrain, every negotiation with unknown species reminded him that the promise was not just words. It was a guiding light. One day, while exploring a newly discovered planet with forests unlike any other, Jaren found himself staring at towering trees that glowed with a pale blue light. The ground beneath his boots pulsed faintly, as if the entire planet were alive. He stopped to catch his breath and took a small crystal from his pocket, a gift he had found on a previous mission. It was not the same crystal he had given Lyra, but it reminded him of her. Holding it, he whispered softly, "I will return. I will find my way back to you." Back on Virelia, Lyra faced her own trials. Her forest was not without danger. One day, a storm unlike any other swept through the forest. The winds howled, twisting the glowing trees, and rain fell in thick sheets. A small group of young aliens from her village had ventured too far, and were trapped near a treacherous river. Lyra did not hesitate. She ran through the storm, her crystal clutched tightly in her hand. Using her knowledge of the forest and quick thinking, she guided them to safety, finding higher ground where the river could not reach them. When the villagers saw her return with the young ones safe, they were amazed. Some whispered about the strength of the crystal she carried, but Lyra knew it was not magic, it was hope, courage, and the promise of the boy who had left her. Years passed and Lyra grew into a young woman. She became a respected figure in her village, known for her wisdom and bravery. The crystal never left her side. At night she would hold it to her chest, imagining Jaren returning from the stars. She often looked at the sky, tracing the paths of ships she hoped might carry him back. Meanwhile, Jaren faced challenges that tested his mind and heart. On a distant planet, he encountered a species that communicated entirely through light patterns and vibrations. To interact with them, he had to learn an entirely new way of expressing thought. It was frustrating at first, and he often felt isolated. But he persisted, reminding himself that every skill, every lesson, was a step closer to returning to Lyra. During one mission, Jaren's team faced danger from a natural phenomenon, a storm of magnetic energy that swept across the planet's surface. Their ship was damaged and survival seemed uncertain, yet with determination and ingenuity, Jaren helped navigate the storm, saving the crew and repairing the ship enough to continue. That night, as he looked at the stars, he thought of Lyra and the promise. The memory of her golden eyes and the crystal she carried gave him strength. On Virelia, Lyra experienced the quiet ache of waiting. Some nights, she would wander to the cliff overlooking the forests and the distant plains, imagining the boy she loved returning across the stars. She learned to trust the passage of time, understanding that some things, like promises and hope, could not be rushed. Her people often asked why she clung to the memory of a boy who had left long ago. She would smile softly and reply, "Because some promises are stronger than the stars themselves." One day, a group of alien merchants arrived in her village from a faraway region. They spoke of strange travelers who had crossed dangerous lands and faced unimaginable challenges. Lyra's heart leapt. She asked them to describe the travelers, and when she heard their tales of a human boy, brave and determined, her hopes soared. She realized that the promise she had kept in her heart might soon be fulfilled. At the same time, Jaren's journey brought him closer to Virelia than he had ever been before. He had discovered a new route through space, a shortcut that would allow him to return to the planet faster. Yet he hesitated. He wanted to be sure that when he returned he was ready, not just as a boy who had made a promise, but as a man who could honor it fully. In the final months before his return, Jaren worked tirelessly, studying alien technology that might help improve life on Virelia, and learning about Lyra's culture from the records he had gathered. Every detail, every story brought him closer in spirit to the girl he had left behind. He imagined her standing among the glowing trees, the crystal still in her hand, waiting for him. Lyra, too, prepared herself. She learned more about the human colony, the technology they used, and the changes that might have occurred during Jaren's absence. She trained herself in survival and leadership, knowing that if he returned, she wanted to meet him as an equal, strong, and capable. The forest seemed to sense the change in the air. Birds with luminous feathers sang longer songs at dawn, and the trees' glow seemed brighter, as if the forest itself was celebrating the bond between two souls, separated by the vastness of space. Then, one evening, as the twin moons of Virelia rose high, Lyra felt a strange vibration in the ground. At first, she thought it was a natural quake, but the vibrations were steady and rhythmic. Her golden eyes scanned the horizon, and in the distance a faint glow appeared, different from the stars, different from any ship she had seen before. Her heart quickened. Could it be him? Could it finally be the moment she had waited for all these years? She clutched the crystal to her chest and whispered to the wind, "Come back to me, Jaren, please." Far above, Jaren's ship cut through the atmosphere of Virelia. He looked down at the planet, his heart pounding with anticipation and a little nervousness. He remembered the promise he had made all those years ago, and now, finally, he was close to fulfilling it. He had grown stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever awaited him. As the ship touched down near the forest clearing, Lyra ran toward the landing site, her heart racing. The crystal in her hand seemed to glow brighter than ever. And then, through the mist and glowing trees, she saw him. Jaren, older now, but unmistakably the boy who had promised her a future. For a moment, neither spoke. Time seemed to hold still as they took in the sight of each other, the years of waiting and growth flowing into that single perfect moment. Finally, Jaren stepped forward, holding something in his hand. A small, shining object, a ring, simple yet beautiful, crafted with care and thought. He knelt before her, the gesture familiar yet filled with a new maturity. "I promised," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers, "and now I'm here to keep that promise." Lyra's heart overflowed with emotion. The years of waiting, the growth, the hope, all culminated in this instant. She took a deep breath, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "And I waited," she replied. "No matter the years, no matter the distance." The forest seemed to exhale around them, the glowing trees and shimmering creatures bearing witness to the reunion. The promise, kept through years and trials, had finally brought them together. Yet as they stood there, a sense of new beginnings filled the air. Their story was not over. It was only beginning. The universe stretched before them, vast and full of possibilities, and together they would face it, united by trust, courage, and the unbreakable bond of a promise made long ago. The forest clearing shimmered with the soft glow of bioluminescent plants as Lyra and Jaren stood facing each other, separated only by a few steps, yet feeling a universe between them. The years of waiting, of hope and longing converged in this moment. Jaren held the small ring in his hand, a simple band crafted with care shining faintly under the twin moons. His golden eyes met Lyra's equally bright gaze, and for a heartbeat words seemed unnecessary. Finally Jaren spoke, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I promised, and I am here to keep that promise. I waited for years, traveled through countless stars, and faced dangers I never imagined, all to return to you." Lyra took a deep breath. The crystal he had given her pressed to her chest. "And I waited," she said softly. "I believed in you, in the promise. Every day I hoped you would come back, and now you are here." Jaren stepped closer, offering the ring. Lyra hesitated, not from doubt, but from the weight of the moment. Accepting the ring was more than a gesture. It was accepting the years of separation, the growth, and the challenges that lay ahead. Finally, with a gentle nod, she took it. "I will wear it," she said, her voice steady, "because I trust you just as I always have." They smiled at each other, the kind of smile that carried years of unspoken understanding. But as they began to talk, the differences in their worlds became apparent. Lyra's culture, rich in traditions and customs, was so different from anything Jaren had known. Even simple gestures like the way she held her hands or the way she walked through the forest carried meaning he did not yet understand. For the first day, they explored the clearing together, walking among the glowing plants and streams. Lyra showed him hidden paths, secret spots where the forest's magic seemed strongest, and quiet places where the creatures gathered at night. Jaren marveled at her knowledge, realizing how much she had grown since he last saw her as a child. "You have become stronger, wiser," he said, genuinely impressed. "I never imagined you would know so much about this forest." Lyra smiled. "I had to. You were gone, and I had to survive, to grow, to learn. The forest teaches you if you listen carefully." Her golden eyes softened as she added, "And I kept your promise close, Jaren. It reminded me why I had to keep going." Their first night together was quiet. They sat near a gentle stream, listening to the soft hum of the forest. Lyra placed her hand on the crystal, now warm from the years of hope and faith it carried. Jaren looked at her, a mix of admiration and wonder in his gaze. He realized that the girl he had promised to return to had become someone extraordinary, someone capable of facing challenges that would have daunted even the bravest human. The next day brought the first real test of their reunion. A group of travelers from Lyra's planet arrived near the forest seeking guidance. They were from a distant village and had heard rumors of a human returning to the forest. Some were skeptical, wary of trusting a stranger, even one who claimed to be the boy from the past. Lyra stepped forward confidently, introducing Jaren to the group. "This is Jaren," she said. "He has kept his promise to me. He is our guest and our ally." The travelers looked at Jaren with curiosity and caution. He bowed slightly, aware that his presence might be unsettling. "I come in peace," he said. "I have returned because I promised to someone I care about deeply. I mean no harm to your people." Some travelers were convinced by his sincerity, while others remained skeptical. They spoke of the dangers humans had caused in the past, of conflicts and misunderstandings between species. Jaren listened patiently, understanding that earning trust would not be immediate. Over the next few days, Jaren and Lyra worked together to help the travelers navigate the forest safely. Lyra explained the behaviors of the creatures and the safe paths through the glowing woods, while Jaren offered practical tools and ideas from his human experience. Together they solved small problems: a blocked river path, a nest of startled creatures, and a malfunctioning piece of equipment the travelers had brought. Through these small adventures, the travelers began to see Jaren's sincerity and capability. His respect for Lyra's knowledge and culture impressed them, and gradually their suspicion faded. Lyra watched him closely, noticing the care he took to understand her world, not to change it. She realized that this was the man she had hoped he would become, not only brave and adventurous, but also respectful, patient and kind. One evening, after the travelers had moved on, Lyra and Jaren sat atop a hill overlooking the forest. The twin moons cast silver light across the trees, making the clearing glow like a sea of stars. "I never imagined returning would be this complicated," Jaren said, smiling wryly. "I thought I would just come back, give you this ring, and everything would be simple. But your world, it is alive in ways I could not have imagined." Lyra laughed softly. "It is not simple, no. But nothing that is worth it ever is. You see, the forest, the people, the creatures, they are all connected. Everything here has meaning." Jaren nodded, understanding slowly. "I see now. And I want to learn, Lyra. I want to understand everything about your world because it matters to you and it matters to us. Both of us together." Lyra reached for his hand, their fingers entwining naturally. "Then we will learn together," she said. "We have already proven that a promise can survive years. Now we can prove that trust and understanding can build a future." The days that followed were filled with shared adventures. They explored distant parts of the forest, finding ancient ruins hidden beneath thick vines, and discovered strange creatures that seemed to communicate with gestures and soft sounds. Jaren documented everything, not to change the forest but to understand it better. Lyra taught him the names and behaviors of each plant and animal, explaining the subtle balance that maintained life in their world. One afternoon, a minor crisis tested their cooperation. A young creature, lost and frightened, had wandered into the human colony near the forest edge. Panic spread quickly among the settlers, who feared it might be dangerous. Jaren and Lyra rushed to help. Using their combined knowledge, they calmed the creature, guiding it back to its home safely. The colonists watched in awe, realizing that the boy from the past had returned not only to keep a promise, but also to protect and respect both human and alien life. Through moments like these, Lyra and Jaren grew closer, their bond strengthened not just by the past but by shared experience in the present. They began to understand that being together was not only about promises, but about action, respect, and shared responsibility. One night, as they rested by a gentle waterfall, Lyra turned to Jaren. "Do you remember the day you gave me the crystal?" she asked softly. Jaren smiled, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Of course. I was scared to leave, and I wanted you to have something to remember me by. Something to hold on to." Lyra held the crystal close. "It reminded me every day that promises are not just words. They are a kind of courage, and you taught me what courage looks like." Jaren felt a warmth spread through him. "And you taught me what patience and faith look like. I could not have made this journey without knowing you were waiting." For the first time, they allowed themselves to fully relax, sharing stories of the years apart. Jaren told Lyra about the alien worlds he had seen, the challenges he had faced, and the wonders he had discovered. Lyra shared her adventures in the forest, her growth, and the creatures she had learned to understand. Each story deepened their appreciation for each other, revealing the extraordinary lives they had lived apart. As the night deepened, the forest around them seemed to settle into a gentle quiet. The glowing plants shimmered softly, and the creatures nestled into their nests. Lyra and Jaren sat together, hand in hand, knowing that their reunion was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, but together they felt ready to face it. Finally, Jaren took a deep breath. "The promise brought me back," he said. "But it is our actions now, together, that will shape the future. Will you face it with me?" Lyra looked at him, her golden eyes steady and full of trust. "Always," she replied. "We will face it together, and no matter what comes, we will remember the promise that brought us here." In that moment, surrounded by the glowing forest and the endless stars above, they knew that promises, patience, and courage could bridge any distance, overcome any challenge, and create a bond that neither time nor space could break. The forest held its breath, as if in agreement, and somewhere deep within its heart, a quiet truth shimmered. The boy had returned and the girl had waited. Together they were ready to begin a new chapter, one filled with adventure, understanding, and hope. The forest was alive with movement, the glowing plants swaying gently under the light of the twin moons. Jaren and Lyra had grown used to walking together through the twisting paths, their hands brushing naturally as they moved. But beyond the peace of the forest, challenges awaited, challenges that neither of them could have anticipated. Lyra's people had heard whispers of Jaren's return. Some were curious, some skeptical, and a few were openly wary. Humans were known for their ingenuity and courage, yes, but also for causing trouble when they misunderstood alien customs or territory. Lyra knew that her people would judge Jaren not by the promise he had kept, but by how he acted now in their world among them. The day arrived when Jaren would meet the elders of Lyra's village. They gathered in a ceremonial clearing surrounded by massive, glowing trees whose branches arched high into the sky. The elders were tall and dignified, their skin shimmering like polished stone in the moonlight. They watched Jaren carefully, noting his posture, his expressions, and even the way he breathed. Lyra stepped forward beside him. "These are the elders," she said softly. "They will judge your intentions, Jaren, but remember, honesty and respect will guide you more than words alone." Jaren nodded. He straightened his posture and stepped forward, bowing slightly in the custom of Lyra's people. "I come with respect," he said clearly. "I have returned to honor a promise I made long ago, and to learn and understand your ways. I ask for your guidance and patience." The eldest among them, a figure named Cyrith, studied Jaren for a long moment. "You speak with sincerity," Cyrith said finally. "But words alone do not prove worthiness. You must show understanding, courage, and care for our people and our land." Lyra squeezed Jaren's hand. "You can do this," she whispered. "Trust yourself. Trust what we have learned together." Their first test came immediately. A young member of the village had wandered too close to the forest edge, near the territory of dangerous creatures known as the Thornclaws. These creatures were rarely aggressive, but they could attack when provoked or threatened. The boy's cries reached the clearing, and the elders turned to Jaren, their eyes questioning. Jaren did not hesitate. He followed Lyra, moving quickly and carefully through the forest. Lyra showed him the paths that Thornclaws avoided, the streams they used to drink, and the places where the ground was safest. They reached the boy, who was trembling atop a rocky outcrop. "Hold still," Jaren said calmly. "I'm going to help you." He carefully guided the boy down, using a rope to stabilize him over the rough terrain. Lyra flanked them, watching for signs of the Thornclaws. When they reached safety, the boy ran to his family, tears of relief in his eyes. The elders observed everything in silence. Cyrith nodded slowly. "You have shown courage," he said, "and you have respected our ways." Others murmured in agreement. Jaren met Lyra's eyes, seeing pride and relief shining there. In the days that followed, Jaren continued to learn the customs of Lyra's people. He attended ceremonies, observed the rituals of the forest, and learned the subtle ways of communication that were unique to her culture. Some elders were still cautious, asking questions and testing his understanding. Jaren answered honestly, admitting when he did not know something and showing willingness to learn. Meanwhile, Lyra and Jaren worked together to improve the village's safety and resources. Using human knowledge and alien wisdom, they built small tools for gathering food more efficiently and designed shelters that withstood storms. Lyra guided him carefully, ensuring that nothing disrupted the delicate balance of the forest. One morning, an urgent message arrived from a nearby settlement. A landslide had blocked a river that supplied water to multiple villages, threatening crops and food stores. Lyra and Jaren volunteered immediately. They traveled together across rugged terrain, carrying tools and supplies, and began working to clear the blockage. The work was dangerous. Loose rocks tumbled down cliffs and the river swelled with rainwater from the mountains above. Jaren used his human experience to engineer levers and pulleys, while Lyra directed workers, ensuring their safety and coordinating the effort. Step by step, they moved the debris, allowing water to flow again. When the river finally ran clear, the villagers cheered. Jaren and Lyra stood side by side, exhausted but triumphant. The elders watched silently, impressed by their cooperation and dedication. Cirith stepped forward, his eyes thoughtful. "You have shown bravery, understanding, and respect," he said to Jaren. "You honor the promise you made and the trust Lyra has placed in you. It is now up to you to show that this bond can extend beyond this village, beyond even the forest." Lyra squeezed Jaren's hand again, a silent promise of support. "We can face anything together," she said. In the weeks that followed, the trust between Jaren and the village grew. They faced minor challenges, unexpected storms, wandering creatures, and disputes over resources. Each time, Jaren and Lyra worked as a team, combining knowledge, patience, and courage. Slowly, skepticism faded, replaced by respect and admiration. Through it all, their personal bond deepened. Jaren learned to understand Lyra's expressions and gestures, while Lyra learned to trust his judgments in dangerous situations. They discovered that their strengths complemented each other perfectly. Lyra's wisdom and knowledge of the forest, combined with Jaren's ingenuity and adaptability, made them a powerful team. One evening, after a long day helping the village prepare for an approaching storm, Jaren and Lyra sat by a quiet stream. The water reflected the twin moons, shimmering like liquid silver. "You've grown even more than I imagined," Jaren said, gazing at her. "I knew you would be strong, but seeing it now, it is inspiring." Lyra smiled softly. "And you have proven that promises matter, not just words but action. You came back, learned, and respected our world. That is courage beyond any battle." Jaren reached for her hand. "And you taught me patience, understanding, and how to truly care for something beyond myself. I could not have done any of this without you." For a long time they sat in silence, watching the stream flow, feeling the weight of their journey and the hope for the future. They knew that their bond had been tested, not only by distance and time but by the expectations and challenges of Lyra's people. And they had passed those tests together. The forest seemed to acknowledge their triumph. The glowing plants shimmered brighter, and the gentle hum of creatures in the night felt like a quiet celebration. Lyra rested her head on Jaren's shoulder, feeling safe and understood for the first time in years. The next morning, the elders gathered to formally acknowledge Jaren's acceptance. A ceremony was held in the forest clearing, blending both human and alien traditions. Jaren knelt before Lyra once more, not just as the boy who had made a promise, but as a man who had earned trust and respect. Cirith spoke, his voice carrying through the trees. "You have proven yourself worthy of the bond you share. Your actions honor the promise and the trust placed upon you. You may walk together as equals, and your path forward shall be guided by courage, wisdom, and care." Lyra placed her hand gently over Jaren's, and he slid the small ring onto her finger. It glimmered softly, a symbol of promise, trust, and a future they would face together. The elders and villagers watched in silence, a mixture of pride, curiosity, and wonder. For Jaren and Lyra, it was more than a ceremony. It was a recognition of everything they had endured, the years apart, the challenges faced alone, the growth and learning. It was proof that promises could withstand time and distance, and that trust and courage could unite worlds. That night, under the twin moons, they walked together through the forest, hands intertwined, hearts full of hope. They knew the universe was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, but they also knew that together they could face anything. The trials of acceptance had tested them, strengthened them, and prepared them for whatever lay ahead. In the quiet glow of the forest, Jaren whispered, "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Lyra smiled, her golden eyes reflecting the light of the moons. "Yes, and this is only the beginning." And in that moment, surrounded by the wisdom of the elders, the hum of the forest, and the promise of the stars above. They felt ready for whatever adventures the future would bring. Together, they had proven that courage, trust, and love could bridge worlds, conquer doubt, and create a bond stronger than time itself. The forest clearing glowed brighter than usual under the twin moons, the bioluminescent plants casting a soft silver light across the ground. Tonight was special. Tonight, the promise made years ago, the years of waiting and growing, of courage and trust, would finally be fulfilled. Jaren and Lyra stood side by side, hands intertwined. The small ring on Lyra's finger shimmered softly, a symbol of their journey, their bond, and the trust that had carried them across years and stars. The elders of Lyra's village were gathered, along with human settlers and travelers who had witnessed the courage, intelligence, and unity these two had shown. Together, they had proven that promises could survive the test of time and trials, and that two worlds could unite through understanding and respect. Cirith, the eldest of the Alien Council, stepped forward. His polished, stone-like skin reflected the moonlight, giving him an almost ethereal presence. "Tonight we celebrate more than a promise kept," he said, his voice carrying through the clearing. "We celebrate courage, trust, and the joining of two souls who have proven that patience and sincerity can overcome any obstacle." Lyra's golden eyes glimmered with emotion as she looked at Jaren. "All these years, I have waited, learned, and grown," she whispered. "And now, we begin together." Jaren smiled, a mixture of joy and awe on his face. "And I have traveled countless stars, faced dangers and challenges beyond imagination, all for this moment." "For you," Cirith nodded. "You have shown that your intentions are true. You have respected our world, our customs, and our people. The promise you made as a boy has been fulfilled, but your journey together is only beginning." The ceremonial circle was formed, blending traditions from both human and alien cultures. Crystals from Lyra's forest were placed in a pattern that represented life, growth, and unity. Human lights and symbols intertwined, reflecting technology and ingenuity. The two cultures, once separated by fear and misunderstanding, now joined in celebration of courage and collaboration. Lyra and Jaren stepped into the center of the circle. She held her crystal close, and Jaren adjusted the small ring on her finger, ensuring it fit perfectly. They gazed at each other, recognizing the years of waiting, learning, and growth that had led them here. "I promise to stand by your side," Jaren said clearly, his voice strong despite the emotion in his chest. "Through every challenge, every journey, every moment yet to come, I will be with you." Lyra nodded, her golden eyes reflecting trust and warmth. "And I promise to walk with you, to face every unknown with courage and understanding. Our bond is stronger than distance, stronger than time, and now it guides us into our shared future." A soft wind rustled through the glowing trees, carrying with it the subtle scent of flowers and the quiet hum of the forest creatures. It felt as if the forest itself acknowledged the promise fulfilled, celebrating their union in its quiet, magical way. After the ceremony, the village erupted in gentle celebration. Human settlers brought small instruments, playing rhythms that blended surprisingly well with the melodic tones of Lyra's people. The children ran among the glowing plants, their laughter echoing through the forest. Even the forest creatures seemed to participate, their movements graceful and harmonious. Jaren and Lyra took a quiet moment to themselves, walking along a narrow stream that reflected the light of the twin moons. The crystal in Lyra's hand glimmered softly, reminding them of the years apart and the bond that had guided them back together. "Do you remember our first meeting?" Jaren asked, his voice gentle, almost teasing. Lyra laughed softly, a sound that blended with the gentle rush of the stream. "How could I forget? You were so fearless, so curious, and yet so inexperienced, and I had no idea what a human was at the time." Jaren smiled, shaking his head. "And yet here we are. The boy who promised and the girl who waited." "Yes," Lyra replied. "And now we face the universe together." Their next days were filled with exploration and discovery. Jaren wanted to learn more about Lyra's culture, and Lyra wanted to understand the human knowledge he had acquired through his travels. They visited parts of the forest that Lyra had never explored before, uncovering hidden valleys and ancient ruins long forgotten. Jaren documented everything, not to take away the magic of the forest, but to understand it and ensure its protection. One afternoon, as they climbed a hill overlooking the glowing canopy, they noticed smoke rising in the distance. Villages and settlements were sometimes threatened by natural disasters, and this was no exception. A small fire had broken out near a cluster of homes. Without hesitation, they ran toward it, leading villagers and settlers in coordinated action. Using both human tools and Lyra's knowledge of the terrain, they created fire breaks and guided water from nearby streams to control the flames. The effort was exhausting, but by nightfall, the fire was contained. The villagers looked at Jaren and Lyra with renewed admiration. It was not just their bond that impressed the people, but their ability to lead, to care, and to act together. They were living proof that understanding and collaboration could overcome even the most urgent crises. After the fire was controlled, Lyra and Jaren stood together, breathing heavily, their hands still intertwined. "We make a good team," Lyra said, smiling despite the exhaustion. Jaren nodded. "The best. And we're just getting started." In the following weeks, the village began to prepare for a larger project, a bridge connecting two distant parts of the forest, making travel and trade easier. Jaren applied his knowledge of engineering, while Lyra guided the construction to ensure it aligned with the forest's natural flow. Together, they led teams of humans and aliens, showing how cooperation could yield extraordinary results. Each evening, they would return to the clearing where their promise had been fulfilled. Reflecting on their achievements and planning for the future, they spoke about exploring beyond Viralia, visiting other planets and settlements, and learning more about the universe together. The excitement of discovery was tempered with the knowledge that they had each other, and that bond made every adventure possible. One night, under the glowing canopy, Lyra looked at Jaren with a soft smile. "We have accomplished so much already, and yet it feels like we've only begun." Jaren took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Because our journey is endless. There are worlds to see, knowledge to gain, and life to live together, and I cannot imagine doing any of it without you." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling safe and understood, "And I cannot imagine a world without you by my side." The forest around them seemed to settle into a gentle quiet, as if acknowledging the bond they shared. The glowing plants pulsed softly. The air was filled with the gentle hum of life, and the stars above sparkled brighter than ever. It was a moment of perfect peace and understanding, a reward for years of patience, courage, and faith. In the days that followed, Jaren and Lyra began planning for a journey beyond Viralia. They consulted both human and alien maps, preparing for exploration, research, and discovery. Their excitement was tempered with wisdom, learned through years of challenges and growth. They knew that the universe was vast, full of mysteries and dangers, but they also knew that together, they could face anything. Before they departed, the villagers and settlers gathered one final time in the ceremonial clearing. Gifts were exchanged, tools for exploration, knowledge in written form, and small tokens representing friendship and trust. Cirith stepped forward and spoke, his voice filled with pride. "You have proven that promises, patience, and courage can unite worlds. May your journey continue, and may the bond you share guide you through every challenge ahead." Jaren and Lyra bowed in gratitude. "We will carry your teachings with us," Jaren said, "and we will honor the trust you have placed in us." Lyra added, "Your wisdom will remain in our hearts as we explore new worlds, and we will return stronger and wiser to share what we have learned." As the twin moons rose high, Jaren and Lyra stood together at the edge of the forest, looking toward the stars. Their ship waited in the distance, ready to carry them beyond Viralia to adventures unknown. Hand in hand they stepped forward. The promise that had begun years ago now transformed into a shared purpose and a future filled with possibility. The forest, the glowing plants, and the quiet creatures seemed to watch in silent blessing. The promise had been kept, the bond had been tested and strengthened, and now it was time to embrace the future together. Jaren looked at Lyra, his golden eyes full of determination. "Ready?" Lyra smiled, her own golden eyes shining. "Always." And so, they stepped into the waiting ship, leaving behind the forest that had witnessed the start of their journey. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of mystery, wonder, and opportunity. Together, they would explore, learn, and face whatever the universe had in store. The promise made years ago had brought them together, and now, it would guide them forward. Across planets, stars, and galaxies, Jaren and Lyra would continue their journey, bound by trust, courage, and love. The future was theirs, and they would meet it as one, partners, explorers, and keepers of a promise that had survived the test of time. In the quiet of space, the crystal Lyra had held for so long glowed softly, a reminder of the boy who had promised, the girl who had waited, and the life they would now share together. The universe stretched infinitely before them, and for the first time it felt as though